Thanks everyone for coming along today. Originally Lucy was going to present her story, and we had a conversation about how we might manage this, and we thought probably it'd be easier for her if we sort of conduct an interview of sorts. So that's what we're going to try and do. I'm going to pose a few questions, Lucy's going to respond, and we'll see how it unfolds over the next half an hour or so. Good. So she's a little bit nervous, so please.
Slightly.
I'm sure you will be a very appreciative audience, attentive, and it'll be an interesting story, I'm sure. So, Lucy, let's start with a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your current role.
So I'm Lucy, I'm 27, I was born and bred in and around Bournemouth. I'm basically speaking today because I've recovered from an eating disorder, and I'm in my third year of doing mental health nursing here at Bournemouth University.
Good. And I should say, I know Lucy because I'm one of the lecturers on the mental health nursing programme, and I actually interviewed her for her place here. So that was an interesting first connection near 3 years ago now, probably just about exactly. So let's start with a little bit about your childhood, Lucy. How was your childhood? When did you first feel that you noticed any mental health issues, any signs of an eating disorder?
So I had a really happy childhood. I'm sort of like one of 4 children, really good childhood. Was never bullied, never bullied anybody, anything like that. But ever since I was really little, I was always really anxious. I was always a really, really anxious child, couldn't wrap my head around things, would get frightened of things for like no reason. I always remember waking up and going down to my dad and being like, I'm scared of something and I don't know what it is. And it was really hard for me to understand sort of what was happening. I started at sort of like the age of 8, having like intrusive thoughts and getting a bit of OCD, which sort of has carried on throughout my whole life in various ways. I started cutting myself at about the age of 11, through no reason really. I saw it as something that I could do. Like I'd read about it in magazines and it was sort of glamorized, and I thought like, oh, I'll give that a go, and then just got completely hooked on it, and it was just absolutely awful. So yeah, that's sort of the first time that anything mental health related came into my life, and then it wasn't until I sort of got to high school when I was about 13 that eating issues began.
Right.
Yeah.
So, from age 13, you first had some sort of eating disorder. Can you say a little bit about your engagement with services? How were you first referred? Presumably this was to the CAMS system, was it? And,
yeah.
And what was that experience like?
So when I first started self-harming, I got referred to CAMS services, and from then up until the point where I was having eating problems, I was with CAMS services, and they were really supportive. I had a doctor that I started seeing at about the age of 15, who me and my family always referred to as Dr. Jumper, and he was just fantastic. He was the best person I could have asked for. And when my eating disorder sort of started getting worse and worse, he said, like, well, at some point you're going to have to be referred on to eating disorder services. And because I was getting to the age, I was sort of about 16, 17, he said, you will have to make that transition into adult services. And I was really nervous about it, but he prepared me really well for it. Moved up into adult services just after my 18th birthday, and that was through outpatients, which did not go well for me at all. The person that I saw, they used shock tactics to sort of try and shake me out of my eating disorder behaviour, which didn't work. Like, I knew full well what I was doing to myself. I knew that it was a problem. I knew that I shouldn't have been doing it, but I wanted to know why it all started in the beginning and what I could do to get better, and she didn't really engage with me on that level. She just started warning me that she had a bed that I could be put in and all this sort of thing, and I ended up completely disengaging from the service. So yeah, that's the point that I stopped using sort of NHS services, But then it was my mum who, through a friend, she heard about a charity called I Eat, which is now a restored eating disorder service. And through that I met a woman called Jess, who has just been my inspiration throughout my whole life, really. She was somebody who, she's suffered from bulimia. She set up this charity. And talking to her was like nothing I'd ever experienced, having somebody who could actually understand what I was going through. And just, I could talk to her on the same wavelength. And it was her that really helped me sort of begin thinking, oh, maybe I can get through this, maybe I can have a life after my eating disorder.
So that transition to adult services was really the point at which you looked for an alternative to NHS care.
Doing. Yeah, I think if I'd have had, I probably shouldn't have disengaged from the services as quickly as I did. I think I should have maybe spoken to the women that I was seeing there and said, like, this isn't ideal, I need you to like speak to me on this level or something. But at that point, I wasn't really ready for recovery or anything like that. It had just become a way of life for me, really, my eating disorder, and somebody trying to take that away from me, I wasn't okay with that.
This wasn't on the original schedule, but I'm just interested in, is it possible to capture the difference between the children's services, for those that don't know, CAMS is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, the difference between the approach within the CAMS service and adult services? Because it sounds as if that was a real transitional point, and yet you were just a few weeks older and you had to go to a different set of...
I think child services, you're treated like a child, and you're quite cushioned, and it's really like, I found it a lot more helpful than the adult services. Adult services I went into and they were like, oh, this is what you're doing to yourself. You've got to stop this because you're an adult and you're responsible and all this sort of thing. And it wasn't, I mean, for me especially, it wasn't the way that I needed to be spoken to or helped.
No, I think it's just interesting from a professional perspective what we do to people by changing the approach according to a sort of judgment which, chronological age is not the only criteria, perhaps. Yeah, let's move on and talk about the more positive side. So you were around the age of 18, you discovered a charity which was much more supportive perhaps than some of the adult services within the NHS have been. Can you say a little bit about your recovery journey, how you started to move towards recovery? And I know you've written about this in the past, haven't you? So what were the major steps and how have you been able to develop a degree of resilience to allow you to move forward?
I basically got to the point where I was okay with having my eating disorder, and I was sort of thinking, well, everybody said I'm going to die from this. Like, I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay to die from this. And I just completely sort of brainwashed myself into thinking that it was an okay thing to do. And I didn't know any other way of sort of dealing with my feelings. It was either cutting myself or drinking too much or making myself sick. But then, really weirdly, I started reading a lot of climbing books. And I started really, I loved reading about mountaineering and this sort of stuff and people pushing their bodies to the limits through mountaineering and stuff. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do the 3 Peaks Challenge. And at this point, I was really quite unwell with an eating disorder. And it was completely, not what I should have been thinking about doing. But I woke up one morning and thought, I'm going to give this recovery thing a go. And I went up to Wales with my dad and we climbed Mount Snowdon. And I wrote a blog about this for Mind, which I'm probably just going to read, but yeah, so bear with me. Yes, this is climbing up Snowdon with my dad. I'd like to turn back, I said. We can't see anything. It's going to be nothing spectacular when we get to the top. I can't do this. I can't go any further. Just walk to where I am, Lucy. Just up to here, and then see how you feel, he answered. I sighed and began plodding upwards. I was muttering to myself about being foolish. Only an hour earlier I said to my father that I wanted to do the 3 Peaks Challenge. What a naive thought, what a silly thought. That was as we started to climb. That was when I was full of beans and thinking this would be the best day ever. How foolish I was to think that my body would allow me to push it so far, to think that after all that I had put it through, it would be on my side. at this point, when we were walking, it was thick mist. You couldn't see anything around you, and I was like, this is just ridiculous, I'm not going to see anything. So I walked up to where my dad was, which was about sort of 30 feet ahead of me, and he was smiling, just looking down at me, smiling as I was like pulling myself up this mountain. And I looked up at him, and he nodded at me and pointed over my shoulder, and I turned around and I realised that we were completely above the clouds, just pure blue sky ahead of us. And we looked up and we could see the summit of Snowdon just like sparkling with the snow and the sunlight. And he just said, oh, should we carry on? And I said, yes. So we walked up, and as I got up there, I thought like, oh, actually, it was like really cheesy thought. Like I thought, oh, this is like my life, like walking up through the mist and it's all awful. I've got this eating disorder. And then suddenly you can come out at the top and be like, everything's really clear and I can make it and I can do it. So coming down from the mountain that day, I had a new faith in myself that I didn't know I had. And I ended up signing up for the 3 Peaks Challenge. I did it for Mind, the charity. And I did it that August, which is about 5 months later. And I stuck to what I said to my dad and I began training. I'd found a new reinforcement in my urge to get better. It had been a lingering feeling for so long, but now I had a goal, a healthy goal for once. An aim to make my body strong and well. During my training, I ran, I walked, and I ate, and I did not purge. I spoke to people about what I was doing and why I was doing it, and the reception I got was profound. I took part in fundraising events at work, and I was really open with why I was doing it and what I had been going through. And I struggled a lot, but my family and my friends and all the people around me really supported me in getting better. So for me, it wasn't just an event, it wasn't just me doing the 3 Peaks Challenge, it was a huge stepping stone in my life. And it was a doorway to me living. So I no longer woke up really excited about binging and making myself sick, which was just all I did, all day, every day, just awful. So instead I was waking up enthusiastic about being alive and wanting to work with my body instead of against it. So took part in the 3 Peaks Challenge, completed it, only just within the 24-hour time slot. And I just remember finishing in Llanberis in Wales, and just my dad was there waiting for me and just collapsing into his arms, just completely astounded that I'd done this thing. And since then, it's been last month I celebrated my 6 years of recovery. And it's never been easy, but I do always think back to the 3 Peaks Challenge, and I always think, actually, I did that, and I'm still here. And I always remember that moment of walking with my dad on Snowdon, and like just going above the clouds, and it's like a metaphor, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any more you want to say about the recovery journey and resilience beyond 3 Peaks?
I suppose I'm resilient, yeah.
I think you are.
I went to, a couple of years after that, I decided like, well, I'm going to do something with my life. So I went back to college and did a access course, and then I got into Cardiff University to do mental health nursing, which didn't go well for me. I was up there for sort of like a few months, and just completely relapsed. I had a horrible boyfriend at the time. Went up to Cardiff, just started drinking excessively, starving myself, making myself sick a lot. Eventually I came clean to my brother, told him what was going on, and I made the really hasty decision to leave university after about 7 weeks. And I came home and everybody was really worried about me. I felt like everybody was angry at me, that I'd let everybody down, that I was completely back to where I was, and that I didn't have anywhere to go from that point. But I then decided to go to my doctor, and he, because of my past, he referred me straight to CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, which completely picked apart my entire life and sort of got to the root of what was underpinning my eating disorder, why it all started, why I drank, why I was so anxious. And it was the hardest experience of my life, but it was really, really rewarding and gave me the confidence to turn around to Bournemouth Uni and be like, I'm going to apply for you. I've been through all of this and I still want to come back. And that's how I met Andy.
We're so nice at the interview, aren't we? Good, so here you are, 6 years on from the start of this journey, approximately. And obviously now into your final year, only a few months now away from qualifying as a mental health nurse, which is a great achievement. I know there are other people in the room in the same position. But for you, you have probably a unique view as you go through the undergraduate programme leading to your qualification, and you've come across people with a range of different mental health issues. So it would just be interesting, I think, for us if you're able to reflect a little bit on how your experience of eating disorders has actually impacted on your role as a mental health nurse, what sort of contributions that make, what sort of insight you have because of your lived experience to a role which is, I guess, mostly occupied by people who don't have that same lived experience.
I think, like, through my placements, I'm really open with people that I work with about, like, especially my mentors and stuff, I'm really open about my history. And I always speak to them about sort of if I'm ever going to divulge information to a patient, which has been never so far. I've never sort of like shared my experiences, but there have been times where certain things have come up, like I've still got scars on my arms from self-harming, and there was a time where a patient noticed the scars on my arms, but it was a point that was quite a weird situation. I basically entered her bedroom. She'd told me that I could enter her bedroom, and she was sat in her bathroom self-harming, and I just sat with her on the floor and just tried to completely distract her from what she was doing. And then eventually she passed over what she was self-harming with to me, and as I reached out my arm, she saw my scars. And without really saying anything, we suddenly both got each other, and I then sort of became her key worker on the ward, and she really opened up to me, and it was really nice to think, oh, actually, I can sort of get on the same wavelength with some of these people, and like they can appreciate that maybe what they're going through can like lead to something more, like they don't have to stay where they are. And this girl ended up doing really well, and she said that she wanted to go back to school and uni and that sort of thing. I don't know whether she has. I haven't been able to follow her, but hopefully she has. There's been another couple of points where I've met people with eating disorders, and originally I thought I'd get really emotional about it, like having that attachment, but for me, looking back on having an eating disorder, it's like a memory, like it's not, in a way, it's not me, because I'm so completely different to who I was then, to who I am now. So I don't sort of see myself in people that I see with eating disorders at work, but there's been advice that I got, especially from Jess at IE, that I've passed on to people, and I've seen that it's really helped them, and that's really, really nice to see. Eventually I want to work in eating disorders, but we'll get there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any more questions here. Are there any other things that you want to say by way of summary?
I don't know. I think when it comes to eating disorders, like getting over it it's completely different for everybody. Like what I did was quite a bizarre way, I suppose, of getting over my eating disorder, suddenly going mountaineering and all this sort of thing. And it's not, what I've been through, it's not to say that it doesn't still affect me every day. Like I still have days where it's really hard. I still have days where if I'm stressed, I might not eat and I'll have to be pushed to eat. But it's not like a conscious decision I make, it's just something that I revert back to doing. And I think it's about finding what works for you. And like sometimes I just want to curl up in a ball, have somebody make me a little nest and just lie there and be like, oh, I'm all comfortable. But then sometimes you have to tackle things head on. But like, I don't know, if you're going through something like that, like an eating disorder, just try and find somebody to talk to, because it does help. I know it sounds really cheesy, but if you've got people around you that you can talk to and you can share it with, it really does help. and you will get better.
Well, that's a very positive message. Good.